time to tell ghost stories. Hey, what's up, boils and ghouls? We are back for another year of spooky season here on the channel. My favorite time of the year when everyone's entitled to one good scare, or 5, like I have today, guys. I have 5 books on my list that I plan to read in October, and I hope that you will read along with me. But as long as you're reading something scary, it's all good with me. Now, this isn't necessarily the order that I'm going to do them in, but I'm just going to kind of read them off here and kind of just see how things going to kind of go with the flow. Whatever I'm feeling, that's going to be the one that I do grab next. But I do have 5 books here, and what these are obviously are kind of leaning into horror or just all in on horror. There are kind of a mix here, so I feel like there'll be a little something for everybody. If you want to join in any of them, like I said, I would love to have you. Let's go ahead and start, guys, with the headliner. This is the one that I am basing the whole month around. This is the new Joe Hill. This is King Sorrow. I have been waiting for this. I got the arc like 3 months ago, and I said, no, let me wait until spooky season because I figured that'll be the best thing. Look, I have been waiting for this guy to write another book for what seems like forever. Now, I know I haven't read everything. I love Nosferatu. I loved Heart-Shaped Box. I think Lock and Key is amazing, and he was doing amazing work in comics. But I was like, Son of Stephen, I need another novel. Well, he decided, hey, how about I just write a huge one? So this is going to be the headliner, but this is also going to be kind of the one where I kind of start at the beginning of the month and just kind of wrap it around the whole month. Because if I just put this off and just say, I'm just going to read just this, it might be like 2 weeks before I get to the next book. And I don't want to do that one, kind of mix it up a little bit. But yeah, very exciting. This is probably my most anticipated book of the year. And I'm not saying that in jest. This is very much one that I just was counting down the days to. And I'm so super excited to start back because, guys, you're going to give me horror, you're going to give me fantasy, you're going to give me dragons, you're going to give me magic. That sounds like a recipe for awesomeness. If you've read Lock and Key, you know Joe Hill knows how to do the fantasy horror very, very good. But what is King Sorrow about, do you ask? Well, Arthur Oakes is a reader, a dreamer, and a student at Rackham College, Maine. But his life is shattered when a local drug dealer and her partner blackmail him into one of the worst crimes he can imagine. Trapped and desperate, Arthur turns to his closest friends for comfort and help. And together they dream up a wild, fantastical scheme to free Arthur from the cruel trap in which he finds himself. They suggest using an unnerving text to summon a monster to do their bidding. And the group doesn't hesitate to smash reality and bring a creature of the impossible into our world. But there's nothing quite simple about dealing with the unknown, and their pact to save Arthur becomes a terrifying bargain in which the 6 must choose a new sacrifice for King Sorrow every year or become his next victim. Yes, if you looked at the cover at all, guys, yes, it's no secret. There is a dragon in here. I changed this up to say monster, and then I told you that there was a dragon in it. So yes, it's not a secret. There is a dragon in this. But I don't think that this time, I mean, he's back and he's bringing a dragon. He's not being secretive that the monster is a dragon with it. That was me trying to do that. I don't know why. But again, I ruined my own plan. So yes, there's a dragon in it. So you're going to have a horror fantasy with dragons. That sounds awesome. Now, I've heard some people compare this to it. I've heard some people compare this to Beowulf. And so I'm like, okay, that's an interesting fit. So Tolkien and Beowulf meets it. Okay, for me, I just think, okay, well, so there's a group of friends, probably something happens to them, and they go through the years together. That's obviously when your dad's Stephen King, they're going to make that comparison. I think everything that you do, they're going to compare to your dad's work. But yeah, very, very excited about this, and cannot wait to start it. As soon as I finish my current read, yes, that will be getting started ASAP. Next up, guys, this one is actually a bit of a surprise because I always joke that whenever something is a Reddit darling, I usually won't touch it because it usually means it's probably just not for me. But this is one I feel like the story about the book and how it came to prominence is actually very, very interesting. I think it was someone who wrote and kind of submitted on Reddit, and it kind of got word of mouth, got picked up, got published. I think even now it's got an option for a movie. This is Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. Now, look, I'm a champion of independent authors. I think that they work their tail off, and I think that, you know what, sometimes you've got to do that. You've got to self-publish because it's hard to write for the big labels these days. At least that's just the feedback that I've got. I'm not an author. You don't want me to be an author, but from what the authors I've talked to have told me, there's lots of lines they have to stick within. And when you're writing horror, that can be very, very hard. It's like the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, who every single horror movie, they're like, okay, well, if you want to leave all this scary stuff in here, we've got to make it NC-17 or rated X. And they're like, well, So they have to cut it down. So I understand the self-publishing need, but this, lots of people have kind of sold this to me like, imagine a really good episode of the X-Files, but also mixed with John Carpenter's The Thing, which is my favorite horror movie of all time. So you've got my attention for sure. But Stolen Tongues, this is one I've had some people tell me they don't understand the hype, and other people tell me, yeah, it legit freaked me out. So I feel like that's going to be everything with horror, because there's something that scares everyone, and no two people seem to be the same on this. But with this, if it's just paranoia in a snowy field inside of a shack, that's I'm very easy sell on that. But Stolen Tongues, now what is this one about? It is about a romantic cabin getaway that doesn't go exactly as planned. High up on the windswept cliffs of Pale Peak, Faye and Felix are celebrating their new engagement when a chorus of ghastly noises erupt from nearby. The screams of animals, the cries of children, and the mad babble of 100 mournful voices. A dark figure looms near the windows in the dead of night, whispering to Faye. As the weather turns deadly, Felix discovers that his terrified fiancée isn't just mumbling in her sleep. She's whispering back. So, okay, well, I don't know what we're messing with here. The original cover had a big, creepy, like, skinless monster on the front of it. I don't know how accurate that is. This was just got a big snowy field and a shack. But again, like I said, isolated, cut off from the rest of civilization, and you're no escape. Yeah, that's worked for me since The Shining. That's something that's always going to work for me. So I'm an easy sell in that regard. But yeah, this is one that comes with, I don't want to say high expectations, because like I said, it is a self-published book. But the things I've heard about it have just been really, really great. So I am expecting to really enjoy it, and I hope that I do. Next up, guys, I had Looking Glass Sound by Katrina Ward on here. That was the one that I was going to pick. I've been interested in Katrina Ward for a while, and she was one when T. Kingfisher was kind of a ho-hum for me last year. A lot of people said maybe try Katrina Ward. That might be one that you like a little bit. And I had this beautiful, beautiful Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter, Broken Vinyl edition. Looking Glass Sound, that was going to be the one, but the more and more I talk to people, the one that sounded like it was going to be for me is The Last House on Neela Street. And not necessarily because this is bad, just from what I heard about, this sounds a little bit more interesting than this one for me. A lot of people said that one just gets a little too meta, and when you get a little too meta in the horror, it always scares me off. But The Last House on Neela Street just sounds like a nice murder mystery, and maybe not really necessarily a murder mystery, but more of like a what's going on with this neighborhood that everybody thinks looks a little normal, but maybe it's a little too normal. Even if you know, you know. I think if you've watched Twin Peaks or something like that, I think you can do, or maybe if you've read, what is it, Wayward Pines by Blake Crouch, you can see sometimes these really too perfect neighborhoods, maybe they aren't all they're cracked up to be. I mean, that goes all the way back to Twilight Zone for me. But The Last House on Neela Street, what is this one about? Well, this is a story of a serial killer, a stolen child, revenge, death, and an ordinary house at the end of an ordinary street. Now, all these things are true, and yet they are all lies. You think you know what's inside The Last House on Neela Street. You think you've read the story before, but that's where you're wrong. This is the story of Ted, who lives with his daughter Lauren and his cat Olivia in an ordinary house at the end of an ordinary street. But in the dark forest at the end of Neela Street lies something buried, but it's not what you think. I feel like this is doing a play off of Wes Craven's The Last House on the Left, so that always gets my attention right away. I'm a big Wes Craven fan. But yeah, sure. Okay, I'm really interested in this author, and again, that sounds like a setup for a perfect horror story for me. Again, I'm an easy sell when it comes to horror stories. Hey, there's a normal-looking neighborhood. Maybe it's a little bit Stepford Wives, but there's a big creepy forest at the end of the street. Okay, sure. As long as it's not The Village by M. Night Shyamalan, I think I could probably give it a try. So excited to do that. Always excited to try new authors. I've been saying I'm looking for someone to replace that first lady of horror for me since my vampire queen Anne Rice passed away, and I haven't quite found it yet. I feel like I found my modern horror author on the male side, and Ronald Malfi, but I'm still kind of searching for it on the ladies' side, and maybe Katrina Ward will be it. We'll find out, starting with that one here very, very soon. Next up, where are we at? Okay, this one I've actually been putting off for a couple of years, because I've already read 2 books by him, and I've liked them both. One I loved a lot. I'm talking about The Deep by Nick Cutter. Now, I absolutely love The Troop. I thought The Troop was awesome. It was mixed the John Carpenter's The Thing, and mix it with like Hellraiser and Cub Scouts. I mean, it's a really, really crazy mix, but it was really good. It really put him on my radar. I did Little Heaven a couple of spooky seasons ago. Liked it, but didn't love it. I thought he really did a good job of making these kind of unlikable protagonists, making them somewhat likable, but then it just kind of veered off into no man's land and started to give me point of view of characters I wasn't cared about after I was really connected to those three leads. And that kind of killed it for me. And then I felt like you really treated his characters like crap at the end. But again, it's horror. That's going to happen. But that isn't why I put off The Deep. The reason I put off The Deep is because so many people told me after The Troop, they read it, and it was a big, big disappointment. Now, for me, I think the reasons I've heard that it was a disappointment won't be disappointing to me because, guys, I am terrified of the ocean. Look up thalassophobia on Google. It is a very, very real thing. It has nothing to do with like being scared of sharks or anything like that. It's something about the open space, the vastness of the ocean that really, really terrifies me. And it's one of those things where I will get in it like waist deep in the ocean and I freak out. My heart rate starts going, and I got to get out. It's just a thing. It's not anything about like, hey, you got to tough it out. It's like, no, I'm going to have a heart attack if I don't get out of the water. So this sounds like the horror version of Sphere by Michael Crichton. Now, I think that Sphere was already kind of horrific, but this obviously is an author who's really firmly got his teeth into the horror genre and is very, very respected and talked about. So for me, you're telling me you're going to mix Sphere with like maybe like, God, what was that movie? Was it Deep Star 6? Was that the one? Or The Abyss or something like that? The ocean's scary enough for me. You've got my attention. And from reading this description, it sounds very much like Sphere to me. But the deep, now what is the deep about? Well, a strange plague called the Gets is decimating humanity on a global scale. It causes people to forget small things at first, like where they left their keys. Then the not so small things, like how to drive or the letters of the alphabet. Their bodies forget how to function involuntarily, and there is no cure. But deep in the Mariana Trench, an unknown substance hailed as ambrosia, a universal healer from initial reports, has been discovered. It may just be the key to eradicating this plague. But in order to study this phenomenon, a special research lab has been built 8 miles under the sea's surface. But when the station goes incommunicado, a brave few descend through the lightless fathoms in hopes of unraveling the mysteries lurking at the crushing depths, and perhaps encounter an evil blacker than anything they could possibly imagine. Now, I don't think necessarily that Sphere was, like I said, a horror book, but I feel like you could have. Like if you're scared of the ocean already, you're going down this far, and that dealt with a lot more different things. And Michael Crichton's obviously a lot more science fiction, but again, when you're dealing with like the ocean's already scary and you're dealing with like an abandoned kind of station under the water, and I think that can be very, very scary. So I'm very, very hopeful for this. Like I said, I feel like the guy's 2 for 2 for me. Didn't like Little Heaven as much as The Troop, but The Troop's one of my favorite horror books I've read since I started this channel. So that's a very, very high bar, but he got my attention for sure with The Troop, and I'm excited to see what happens with this one as I put it off for a couple of years now. Well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and tell you now that I had a 5th book picked out. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what it is. And this isn't to say, haha, I was going to do this because I know that this author has a lot of fans. It was something very, very unexpected. I had this ready to go right before I was about to sit down and start recording this. And then I got some book mail, and I had to bump it. Because, guys, like earlier this year, I read The Third World Time Travel, and I liked it. But Boys in the Valley, I read that last year, and I said, Philip Fracassi, the next horror book that he writes is going straight to the front of the line. And I got this today, and it said, okay, perfect. Because look, guys, Boys in the Valley was incredible. I loved it. It sounds a little bit more, I don't know, the description almost sounds like a Grady Hendrix book, but I feel like I'm trusting Philip Fracassi to stick the landing better than Grady Hendrix has for me. And it almost sounds like if Insomnia by Stephen King was a bit more of a murder mystery. Does that make sense? Because your protagonists are, retiree age. They're living in an old folks home or a community, whatever you want to call it, retirement home. I don't want to get too... Got to choose my words politely. My mother's in an old folks home. That's just what we call them these days. But this is very exciting because I didn't even know I was getting this. Apparently it comes out next week. I wasn't aware, but I was very, very excited. So I want to thank Tor Nightlife, or Tor Nightfire, and of course, Mr. Fracassi for whoever made sure that I got one of these. Well, guys, it is going on the list here. I'm very, very excited for it. Sorry for the Stephen Graham Jones fans. I wasn't doing that to tease you. I do still plan to read I Was a Teenage Slasher, because I know after the Buffalo Hunter didn't work for me, I said I'm still going to at least try this one, because it's like everyone I talk to that loves the same horror authors and books that I do really love Stephen Graham Jones. So I feel like I need to give him a better chance. But this was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. I saw this and I just got excited and said, yeah, that's got to go on here, especially after I read the synopsis, which I'm going to read for you now. It says, Rose Dubois is not your average final girl. Rose is in her late 70s, living out her golden years at the Autumn Springs retirement home. When one of her friends dies alone in her apartment, Rose isn't too concerned. Accidents happen, especially at this age. Then another resident drops dead, and another. And with the bodies stacking up, Rose can't help but wonder, are these accidents, old age, or something far more sinister? Together with her best friend Miller, Rose begins to investigate. The further she digs, the more convinced she becomes there's a killer on the loose at Autumn Springs. And if she isn't careful, Rose may be the next victim. So it sounds fun to me. Hopefully it gets a little bit more sinister. I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of take that description, you think it could be fun, it could be over the top, it could be a slasher, it could be ridiculous, it could be, oh, nope, it was not a killer the whole time, it was just the killer's father time. You know, it could be whatever. I don't know. I need a good murder mystery on here, and that sounded like a really, really good pick. So for me, I'm excited about all these. I'm still excited about Teenage Slasher. If the Joe Hill book wasn't so long, I would have just said I'm doing 6 in October, but that Joe Hill book is massive. So I think anything picking more than 5 this month would be kind of just setting myself up for disappointment, especially when I got a couple of 3 700-page books coming next month. Yeah, so we had to plan accordingly here. But a couple that just missed it, I had a horror movie about Paul Tremblay on here. Just the feedback I got on this is terrible. It sucks because I met Mr. Tremblay at what was Comic Palooza here in Houston. And he was a really nice guy. And I liked Head Full of Ghosts. I reviewed that a couple years ago. For the most part, I liked that book. And I think it's an author that I want to keep trying. And this sounded right up my alley, but people just tell me it's elevator horror, which I've been very, very vocal about not liking. I don't know. I'm not counting it out. I'm just saying that's why I kind of moved it off the list. Another one was called Mexican Gothic. The author's, her name is escaping me at the moment. But it's one that someone told me, said, imagine if a Resident Evil game was written but in the 1950s. And I said, okay, that sounds very interesting. So I don't know if it is necessarily a zombie book or just kind of like a haunted mansion kind of thing, whatever. But that's one that I've heard a ton about. And several others just kind of just missed it. That I said that I'm reading more horror. I'm coming to the end of my Ronald Malfi stuff now. In fact, I'm sure some of you are probably wondering about Ronald Malfi. I know I had said I was going to do Ghost Written, but I've read so much Ronald Malfi this year. I am supposed to be talking with the author on the channel in October. So I said, okay, how about giving some of these other authors a chance here? Because I know I like Ronald Malfi. And when you get the opportunity to spend a whole month reading horror, maybe you can find some new authors or some new books by some familiar authors that you've really liked in the past to see if, it was more than just a one-hit wonder. Maybe they're going to be one of your new favorites. So that's why I kind of did that. But I should be getting Ghost Written in sometime early next year. But I'm sure you guys have probably had enough of Ronald Malfi this year. I haven't. I think the guy's awesome. But I did want to give some of these other authors a chance to show what they got. But guys, that is everything I've got planned for the spooky season. I'd love to know what you got planned. If you want to read any of these with me, man, I would love to have you. The Joe Hill book comes out, I think, the 3rd week of October. So if you want to wait for that, I will have my review up, hopefully on release day, if I am done with it in time. If not, it'll be really, really soon after. But I think it'll be a really, really great horror read, especially if you're a fantasy fan, because it sounds like it is kind of straddling one foot in fantasy and one foot in horror. And maybe you're looking for that introduction to horror. I think that Joe Hill would be a really, really great author to give that a try for fantasy fans. So that's what I have, guys. Why don't you drop in the comments, guys, and let me know what you plan to read in October. I will talk to you there.